ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive.
It is Thursday, September 21st. Your drive begins now on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Our text line is open, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Coming up this hour, I've got a very special guest, longtime Virginia Tech play-by-play announcer, Bill Roth, is going to join us. We're going to talk about the Hokies. Game is on Saturday, Herd taking on Virginia Tech. And we've got it for you. 9 a.m. we go on the air with our coverage here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. And, of course, we're going to give you an opportunity to go to that game. I've got my text line open. It's 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. I haven't come up with the way just yet. What am I going to ask you today? I might just leave it to your own devices. Make you a little bit more of a participant in the show today. So I might do that, but we're going to give you that chance nonetheless, and that's coming up. Our text line, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. We got football action as well coming up tonight. Are you all ready for some Thursday night football? I am. I am absolutely ready. We got the Giants and the 49ers. That is coming up tonight. 8:15 is going to be first kick there. We go on the air 8 o'clock following the Charles Huff Show. That's coming up tonight at 7. So we've got football action tonight with the coach talking about the Herd. And then we've got football action on the field. And you can keep your radio right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Let's stay in the NFL for just a minute. The Cleveland Browns are bringing back Kareem Hunt to kind of help shore up the backfield. Nick Chubb with that season-ending injury. He signed a one-year deal. According to sources, and ESPN's Adam Schefter, $4 million. So Chubb's placed on injured reserve. And has to be a devastating injury for Browns fans. They look pretty good in their first game against the Bengals. I'm not going to give you any excuses there. They just look like a better team against the Bengals. They look good. And so the Bengals kind of in disarray right now. Maybe Joe Burrow isn't 100%. The Browns losing Nick Chubb. I don't know. This could be the Ravens division. Let's hope for the best, especially for the Bengals. But if you're a Browns fan, this is going to be devastating for you as well. But stranger things have happened. Kareem Hunt could go off and have one of those Hall of Fame caliber seasons. You never know. But we've got the game for you coming up tonight. It's the Giants and the 49ers. That is coming up 8:15 first kick. 8 o'clock air here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. We got a lot of things happening as well with the Thundering Herd. Women's soccer team is in action. They're on the road at James Madison tonight at 7 o'clock. And then volleyball's in action. I don't know if you know this, but they are taking on Old Dominion tonight and Friday night. Going to be at 6 o'clock both nights at the Cam Henderson Center. So some volleyball action for the Thundering Herd. If you haven't had a chance to go out and see Ari Agnes' squad just yet, you've got a couple of opportunities. And, of course, Friday night also meaning high school football night across the tri-state. So you've got a lot to get into tomorrow. But you got to be in bed early because it's a noon kick tomorrow, and I know a lot of you want to go tailgating. And I know a lot of you are not happy that you can't really go tailgating because the game is going to kick at noon. So you got to pick and choose what you're going to do. And we've got a full slate of games. Huntington's taking on Capital tomorrow. We're going to have that game right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. It's going to be Cabell Midland at Parkersburg on our sister station, 97.9 The River. Spring Valley will play host to Riverside. That's coming up Friday as well on our sister station, 92.7 and 98.5 The Planet. And then Greenup County at Ashland. That's coming up Friday night, 7 o'clock on our sister station, Cat Sports, 93.3 and 1340. So a lot of action tonight, tomorrow, and then, of course, on Saturday. But I know we got Thursday night football. I'm also going to be watching some college football tonight. We got Sunbelt football tonight, 7:30, Georgia State at Coastal Carolina. How many of you are going to actually watch that over the NFL game? I'm not going to lie. I'm probably taking that over the NFL game. I'll watch them both. I'll keep an eye on both. But I'm honestly, if I'm going to sit down and maybe lock into a game for a little while, I'm taking, believe it or not, I'm taking Georgia State at Coastal Carolina. I just think that's going to be more interesting. I know that's heresy for some of you. Giants, 49ers, I mean, I don't even like the 49ers. Not a fan. Some of you know why. I'm not a fan. Go back many, many years, Super Bowl games that the Bengals lost because of the 49ers. Definitely not a 49ers fan, but it should be interesting. I want to see Coastal and Georgia State. I want to get a better look at them. So that's going to be a fun one tonight to watch. So in a few minutes, we're going to talk to our guest. He's got a Marshall connection. You might know it. There's always a Marshall connection, right? Longtime Virginia Tech play-by-play announcer Bill Roth. Bill, of course, had a connection to Marshall. He was actually on staff at Marshall for a while before making the move to Virginia Tech, and he's had that job for a long time. Left and then came back. So he's definitely been a staple of Virginia Tech football for a long time. You might have heard his voice on many a ESPN broadcast or during bowl season. You know, he's had an amazing bowl streak. I don't think he's had a bowl at least every year from 1993 to present. He's done at least one bowl game. So that's an impressive streak. We're going to focus more on the Marshall game. Of course, there are a lot of connections. Virginia Tech quarterback Grant Wells, that's a connection. J.C. Price, Tech's defensive line coach, 9 seasons with the Thundering Herd. Of course, a former Hokies walk-on linebacker, now your special teams coordinator at Marshall, Jonathan Galante. And the connection that I think sometimes maybe people don't remember, younger people, it's because Marshall doesn't play Virginia Tech on a frequent basis. So I feel like we have to do a little refresher on this because Rick Tolley, Marshall coach Rick Tolley, was on the plane. And he's a Virginia Tech guy. So a lot of connections in this game. So it's good to get it back on the schedule. I hope that it continues. I'd like to see it. I don't know if you can see it every single year, but I'd like to see it more frequently, maybe every couple of years, maybe a few years, just a smaller gap in between visits to Blacksburg or having Virginia Tech be able to come to Huntington. So I hope we see this series a lot more. But we're going to talk about the game coming up with Virginia Tech play-by-play announcer Bill Roth. That's when we continue with today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to today's edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Paul Swann, your host for this Thursday edition. Coming up, I'm giving you an opportunity to win my final pair of tickets to go see the Herd take on Virginia Tech. So if you don't have your tickets just yet, this is your final opportunity. So stay tuned for that, and we'll open up our text line for you in just a few minutes. But I want to welcome to the program now. He is the longtime voice of the Virginia Tech Hokies, play-by-play extraordinaire, Bill Roth. I hear him everywhere. He's on bowl radio games all season long. Every time I turn around, Bill, when it comes to bowl season, I sign up for all these bowl games so we can listen to them, and I think you're on like all of them.
Seems that way. I got a lot of the bowl swag. I've got little polyester slacks from all these different bowl games and little bags that they give you. But hopefully the Hokies can get to a bowl game this year. They're not off to the start that the fans in Blacksburg and throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia had expected.
According to Coach Huff, if you don't look at the score, I love how he describes it. If you don't look at the score, yeah, this team is a few plays away. Yeah, I mean he's built them up. He has talked Virginia Tech up. How much of that is Coach Huff just inflating the Virginia Tech Hokies, and how much do you think that's real?
Well, if you didn't look at my prom date in high school, you'd have thought she was pretty. So, I think, they've not played well. I mean, they can't run the ball. They can't stop the run. They have a lot of special team miscues. They're off to a disappointing start. Even their win was not a clean football game. So, and then to add insult to injury, so to speak, are the injuries. Their top four offensive weapons are out. So it's been a real struggle for them to score. They've got some backups that are learning and they're very young. But it's been a struggle for the first month of this season.
One of those key injuries, Grant Wells, and I know there's a lot of anticipation for him to come back to West Virginia, play at Marshall where he started. Do you have a status update on if he's going to be able to go, or will we see him on the field?
I don't know. I haven't gone to practice yet today. That they're out there now. I think he'd love to play, obviously, from being from Charleston, and his wife's from over there, plus their families will be at the game. And, of course, for him, it's a homecoming to play back at the Jones. So I know he'd love to play, but he's hobbled right now, and they've not made it'll probably be a game time decision if he can play or not.
Still a lot of anticipation for him. And you look at the connections to Marshall and Virginia Tech, and if you are looking at the game notes alone, both schools have pointed out all the connections. It takes up the entire front page just about of the Virginia Tech notes. Yeah. You included here, you have a history with Marshall University. I was surprised, though, you didn't make the game notes for Virginia Tech. I was a little surprised by that.
Well, I don't do the game notes. But the teams are kind of similar. I mean, they've been slow starting teams. Hokies trailed 17-0 against Purdue, rallied to tie it, and then lost. And then against Rutgers last week, they were down 21-3 to start the game, and then rallied and lost. And the Herd's been the same, right? I mean, they've been behind going into the fourth quarter in each of their first two games. So, I think both coaches probably want to get off to a better start. I know for sure, from Virginia Tech's standpoint, it's hard to spot the other team's 17 or an 18-point lead in the second quarter and come back and win the game. Your odds of doing that are slim. And so they want to get off to a better start and get the team playing better early. They've had their moments, for sure, in the last couple of games. But they haven't been able to put four quarters together.
My guest, longtime Virginia Tech play-by-play announcer Bill Roth, the Thundering Herd and the Hokies. Saturday high noon here in Huntington. Game's going to be a sellout, and so we're expecting hopefully a lot of fans from Virginia Tech as well making the trip. It's unfortunate. These two schools, with the connections that are between both institutions, really don't get an opportunity to see each other very often. So it's kind of special when Marshall and Virginia Tech do play.
Oh, I know. It's awesome. I mean, for me as well. It's funny. I had breakfast this morning with David Brain, retired to Blacksburg, but David was the athletics director at Marshall and then came to Virginia Tech. So his perspective on this game is interesting. He shared some interesting stories this morning with me that we're going to use on our broadcast on Saturday about Coach George Chomp and that era and going from Fairfield Stadium to the new stadium and how Governor Arch Moore loved Coach Chomp and all the behind-the-scenes stuff that, you can talk about now that it's 30 years down the road. But, I was just out of college and going through that when I was in Huntington, and it was funny to hear Dave talk about it. But, some of the ties, whether it's, Grant Wells or J.C. Price, who are now on the Tech side after spending a good bit of time in Huntington, or Frank Loria is one of the greatest Hokie players ever. And Rick Tolley was a Hokie, the coach of the Herd. So we grieve that plane crash here as well. And it's funny, Paul. I asked Coach Beamer when the Hokies played in Huntington in 2012 or 11. whatever it was, 2011. I said, do you think that you would have had Frank Loria on your coaching staff at Virginia Tech? Because he was a coach, an up-and-comer. And I said, Coach Beamer, do you think Frank Loria would have been on your staff? And he laughed, and he looked at me seriously, and he said, no, I would have been on his staff. That Frank Loria was the guy that was the brilliant coach. Not only an amazing player and a war hero, but a really intelligent guy. And Coach Beamer always thought that Frank Loria would have been the head coach at Virginia Tech.
My guest is longtime Virginia Tech play-by-play announcer Bill Roth, and you're highlighting some of those connections. It's very fresh in the minds of a lot of Herd fans to this day. The East Carolina game also brought up all of those memories of the 1970 plane crash. With the connections between Marshall and Virginia Tech, do you find that you have to maybe remind people now and then what those connections are, since these two schools really don't see each other in football very often?
A little bit. It's funny. I mean, you're getting old when, there's not a student at Virginia Tech who was alive when Michael Vick played. So, anything that happened before the 2005 season, 2004 season, it might as well have been in the 1800s to some of these people. So everything is fresh to them. And this is an important thing to know in college football history, not just for Marshall or Virginia Tech people, but just in general, what happened and how Marshall and the Huntington community rebuilt. And for our people, clearly the ties and there's a big Frank Loria plaque at Virginia Tech too. And so, which, the Marshall people who are here see, and we take great pride in that. So it's educational, but everything is educational to this new group of fans that are joining. It's funny, we have 7,000 freshmen at Virginia Tech this year, and it's a great group and whatnot. But we got to teach them everything from who Bruce Smith was to how to do the hokey pokey. So there's a lot of educating going on.
That sounds like, I don't know, there's the week of welcome here at Marshall where they kind of go over some of that. So I don't know if that needs to be installed at Virginia Tech, or if there's something already similar to that.
Yeah, they've got a hokey camp that they do for high school kids before they get here. It's funny, the Hokie, they've sold out their first couple of games. Our next home game with Pitt sold out. So they're going to have 3 straight sellouts to start. They just got to play better. The everything is here to be ultra successful again in football, but the team thus far has not played the way the coaches had hoped, or candidly the way the fans had hoped this team would play this year.
I'm curious, since we haven't had a chance to talk in a while with Marshall and Virginia Tech, 2 different paths. Power 5, Virginia Tech, and that came up. Marshall now moving into the Sun Belt. With the transfer portal, Coach Huff reminded his team, he said, that this is still a Power 5 school. We're catching up with the transfer portal, but this is still Virginia Tech, Power 5 school. Have you seen, how much of a change has the transfer portal meant to Virginia Tech, good or bad?
Well, if you take a look at some of Virginia Tech's top players, now some of them are hurt, but if you look at, Grant Wells played at Marshall, Ollie Jennings played at Old Dominion, Antoine Powell-Ryland, the top defensive end, he transferred from Florida. So you see a lot of that. And if you look at the ACC, I don't know that there's any team, certainly no team in our league, maybe nationally, that has done better in the portal than Florida State. And so they've kind of showed us the recipe. Recruit the elite kids in your home state, and then get the tailback from Oregon, the quarterback from Louisville, and the top corner from UVA, and all of a sudden, Florida State's ranked number 4 nationally. So, they've done a great job of recruiting elite players in their own state and then getting really good players from other teams. And Pry's done a little bit of that as well. Tootin, the starting tailback's a transfer. Jalen Lane is a transfer from Middle Tennessee. Jennings from Old Dominion. Wells from Marshall. Tootin from North Carolina A&T. The skill guys are transfer people at Virginia Tech.
My guest is the voice of the Virginia Tech Hokies, Bill Roth. And you mentioned Brent Pry. there's a history between him and Coach Huff. They've worked together on several coaching staffs, Vanderbilt, Penn State. What's Coach Pry saying about Coach Huff? Because I know Huff has been talking him up all week.
Yeah, they're buddies, and it's tough because they were on the same staff. When they got going, they started at Vandy, and that's one of the great stories. I mean, they won at Vanderbilt. You talk about tough, winning at Vanderbilt in the SEC East at a time when the Gators were going and the Dogs were going at Georgia. You know what I'm saying? That was pretty impressive what they did. And then they were together at Penn State for a bit. So there's a lot of familiarity. I think that this is the third time this year because Rutgers was a Penn State-flavored coaching staff. Old Dominion is a Penn State-flavored coaching staff. So there's a lot of familiarity just because of their time together at State College. So we're going to talk more about that tonight on his radio show, but there's some familiarity. I think the focus here is winning. They have to win the game. I mean, all of these other things, when you're 1-2 at Virginia Tech, who you play, where you play, the history, the rivalry, the weather, the tickets, there's heat to win this game this week. And a 1-3 start here would be really hard to swallow for a lot of people. And the coaching staff as well. So I think there's a real sense of if this team wants to make a bowl game and make the progress it needs to make, the focus is on winning the football game. It's almost like a conference game, which seems unusual for necessarily, this game on Saturday at noon. But there's some pressure to win this game for the guys from Virginia this week.
My guest is Bill Roth. He's been the longtime play-by-play voice of the Virginia Tech Hokies. So you kind of get a perspective. What is Virginia Tech saying about Marshall? How are they talking the herd up, or what are they saying about the herd that are trying to prepare the fans for this team? You start off 2-0 and come from behind fashion. You got to be doing something right to win games.
He talked about Fancher and his ability to move around a little bit. They're impressed with Ali. And the defense is really good. They've talked about that to a certain extent, and so they know the personnel a little bit, and they've watched the tape. Look, they're more concerned about what they're doing. They've lost the turnover battle in each of the last two games. Their special teams were sloppy last week. They're more concerned about what they're doing, to be honest. And I know that sounds like coach speak, because if the Hokies play the way they did last week at Rutgers, it doesn't matter if it was Marshall or Elon or pick a university anywhere, right? Catlettsburg Community College. They're not going to win. So their focus this week has been getting better. Not that they're not focused on Marshall, so to speak, but this week has been a lot on this team, what they need to do to play better. And that's kind of what the vibe around here has been.
Longtime Virginia Tech play-by-play announcer Bill Roth is with us. So when you get into Huntington, I don't know what your travel plans are. What's your game plan? Because, you go places. Sometimes you have a history there, sometimes you don't. Since you have a little history here, what's the game plan when you come in?
Well, first of all, we are going to go to the Memorial. Well, I shouldn't say that. First thing, we're going to the stadium. We're going to get there tomorrow morning. So the first thing is we'll go to the stadium. But then we're going to go to the Memorial, which is something that I always do when I come back to Huntington. The weather looks good, so I'm thankful for that. I'll drive around the town and campus a little bit. I'll probably drive by my old place where I live on 3rd Avenue and see what has become of it. I'll do a little Henderson Center hall walk and probably run into Steve Cotton and some other friends who, I've known since I got out of college back in the 80s. So it's fun to come back. It'd be nice to go to a Marshall football game and not have to work it, but it'll be fun to get back to Huntington and see a lot of people and shake some hands. And I'm old enough now. We just hug everybody at this point when we get back into town, because it's been 35 years since we've seen a lot of these people.
Are you surprised by the affection you still get? I mean, you were here you were here, but you've been at Virginia Tech a lot longer, but people still here treat you as if you're one of the family.
Well, I'm indebted to Marshall forever. Marshall hired David Brain and Coach Chomp and Coach Huckabee. I mean, They hired me right out of college. Think about that. I was 21, and Coach Huck was awesome. Coach Chomp was great to me, and everybody that was there. And I still have my green blazer. In fact, I was joking with J.C. Price last week. I said, "Did they give you a green blazer?" And he said, "No, what green blazer?" I said, "See, they gave me a green blazer, and I still have it. I don't think I'm allowed to wear it this week, but Marshall will always be really special to me, and everyone who knows me knows that. So, the Hokie fans and Marshall fans are really similar, right? The community is similar. The passion for the team, the underdog role, the way that the Herd built its program. And I was there when we had a really good season, but that was in the Southern Conference, and we were about to go to, at that point, it was called Division 1A, not FBS. But, could we make this move? Can we get the stadium? It was a really exciting time. And, over the years, I've run into so many players and coaches from that team. Tony Peterson, he's had a good coaching career, and we've talked about it. And it's always fun to come back. I mean, it's sentimental. It's nostalgic to walk around the campus and to reminisce about, a really good team, and a program that changed. It changed. I mean, it's hard to go from where, Marshall was as a 1AA team, and then all of a sudden, a few years later, they're in the top 20 as a 1A team. That was incredible. And a lot of it goes to the Marshall fans, because they packed Fairfield, and then they packed the new stadium, and the coaches who were there were dynamite, and it'll be good to be back.
My guest, Bill Roth, Virginia Tech play-by-play announcer. Be safe on your travels when you get into Huntington. Watch out for traffic on Halger Boulevard. They're doing construction there. Let me tell you, you got to think about it for a second with the construction going on there. So that's a heads up for you.
I'll let everybody know. I'm really looking forward to coming in, and I just hope we have a great game. We're not. I don't think there's one more game on the schedule between the two teams. And I don't know. They do these schedules. And with the conference realignment, who knows? But I think there's only one more game left in the series, so we're going to enjoy it while we can.
Let's hope that we get many more of these games, but we'll enjoy it on Saturday. Sellout crowd. Bill, thanks for doing this, and look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Sounds great. Thanks, Paul.
That's Bill Roth, longtime Virginia Tech play-by-play voice. Always a Marshall connection. Glad to have him back in Huntington on Saturday. We will take your text in just a few moments. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. We're going to give you a chance to win 2 tickets. My final pair of tickets to go see the Herd take on the Hokies. That's coming up on Saturday. We'll do that with our text line when we continue on today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Our text line is open, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. I'm going to open that up right now, giving you a chance to win 2 tickets to go see the Herd take on Virginia Tech. That's coming up this Saturday, high noon, sellout game. So if you want tickets, and you don't want to pay for your tickets, you don't want to go through the reseller route, you just want to show up, pick up your tickets, and then go to the game. Now's your opportunity. I've been sitting here thinking, how am I going to give these away today? I mean, we asked the easy stuff, like what's the score going to be? How many touchdowns you think that Rasheen Ali would have? How many yards? Who's going to have the winning touchdown? Let's make it easier for you today. Tell me why you want the tickets. Tell me why you want the tickets. Give me a good story. It doesn't have to be real, and I won't know. So you can give me a good story. I don't know. Give me your best pitch. Why I should give you the tickets. We'll make it easy for you. And of course, if you have something to say as well, you're going to be automatically entered. And everybody that texts in today is going to be automatically entered. And that's 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Your your chance to win goes up if you can tell me this. Which Marshall coach has a winning record against Virginia Tech, and which Marshall coach has the most losses against Virginia Tech? Bonus points to you if you can throw that in. And again, it's 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. This should be easy. You should have this one. I think I'm making it too easy today with that question. Which coach has a winning record against Virginia Tech, and which coach has lost the most against Virginia Tech? And I'll give you a hint. The coach with the most wins against Virginia Tech is different than the coach with the most losses against Virginia Tech. So that should narrow it down a little bit. That should help you out. And again, that text line is 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. I guarantee you, if longtime Marshall historian Woody Woodrum and a co-host of this show on occasion was in here right now, he'd be yelling at me for making that question real easy. He would be yelling the answer. So you got a shot at this. I'm making it easy. If you know that answer, you go a little higher on the list, but we're going to randomly draw one winner from all the texts. So if you're looking for your tickets, today's the final day to win them. And again, tell me why you want to go. Why should I give you my tickets? 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Final segment's coming up on this edition of The Drive. It's ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Our text line is open. We're giving you an opportunity to win my final pair of tickets. Marshall taking on Virginia Tech. Sold out game, high noon, right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Let's go to the text line. Texter writes in, my prediction of the game is 24-17 Marshall. Should be a low-scoring game with two good defenses. Would love to see Marshall win after sitting at a big loss in Blacksburg a few years ago. I'll be cheering loudly on Saturday if I get in the stadium. Go Herd. All right, that's a pretty good entry. Texter writes in and says, I think I should win because I believe Paul Swann is the best broadcaster in all of the state. That is a really good entry. Okay, we will consider that. That is a really good entry. Texter writes in and says, my mama had season tickets, and now that she is gone, I want to go see a Marshall game. Winning coach Bobby Pruitt and losing coach Doc Holliday, and go Herd. Okay, she has said, I believe, let me rewrite this here. Let me make sure I read it right. Texter is saying Bobby Pruitt is the coach with the winning record against Virginia Tech, and Doc Holliday is the coach with the losing record against Virginia Tech. And I will reveal the answer. This is coaching in Marshall. Let me qualify this. There's no misunderstanding here. This as the coach of Marshall. Texter writes in and says, trying to get tickets for my family to go. Winning is Cam Henderson. Losing is Doc Holliday. That's my best guess. Go Herd. I'm going to reveal the answer in a few minutes. So if you think you know who the winningest coach Marshall football history against Virginia Tech is, and you think you know which coach has lost the most games against Virginia Tech, you can text that in 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. First time that Marshall played Virginia Tech, if I've got my info right, 1913. It was a 47-0 victory for Virginia Tech. The following year, 1914, it was 54-6 Virginia Tech, beating the Herd. The next time these two teams would play would be in 1939 and 1940, and then 1952 and 1953. And then we wouldn't see a resumption of this series until 2002. Then they would play in 2005, 2009, 2011, 2013, and then 2018. So that was the last time that Marshall played Virginia Tech. But the first two games were played in 1913 and 1914, going a ways back. And that is your Hokie. That's your Hokie update there. You know, they have a all-time record of 767 wins, 500 losses, and 46 ties. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. That's the number to be a part of today's edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Okay, I'm gonna pick one of these here. If you got a chance, You give me a couple minutes here. We're gonna get a couple more texts in. I'm gonna pick this here before we go off the air. Texter writes in, I want the ticket so I can cheer up my son. That's a good way to play on my sympathies. That plays on my sympathies there. Texter writes in and says, okay, I like this. You got to get creative now. I want the tickets to hopefully impress a very attractive girl on a first date who hates football and make her love the atmosphere at the Joan and football with a Marshall win. Cam Henderson, most wins. Doc Holliday, most losses. Very good. Very good. You're playing on my sympathies here. You're tugging at my heartstrings. Again, I don't know if any of these are real. If you're just completely making this stuff up, hoping that you're going to give me the best story and I'm gonna take it, we're going to find out. Texter says, my whole family is full of Marshall alumni. We bleed green. Go Herds. Cam Henderson with the most wins. Doc Holliday with the most losses. Okay. You are entered. We'll get more in. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. I'm going to throw out the one that says that they should win because they believe I'm the best broadcaster in all of the state, only because if I pick that one, that would make me look really egotistical and narcissistic, so I'm going to throw that one out. I mean, I appreciate it. I really do, but, if I pick that one, the fix is in, right? So we're not doing that one. So we'll disqualify that one. I don't know. Maybe we should get people to pick which person wins. And I'm sure everyone's going to pick themselves, so maybe that's a bad idea when it comes to this. So I'm here to help. I mean, cheering up your son is a good way to get me to get those tickets to you. Wanting the tickets to impress someone on the first date, that's good. Whole family is full of Marshall alumni. You bleed green, that's good. And let's see. It's going to be tough. This is really going to be tough to choose. So I think what we might go with is we might go with who had correct the winning coach and the losing coach. We might go with one of those respondents. And again, let's see. A texter writes in and says, pick the first one that got the trivia correct. That's a good idea. That's an absolutely good idea. Okay. Well, pick the first one that got the trivia correct. I appreciate my text line again at 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Okay, so the first person that got the trivia right is going to win. So we'll give you the answer. Winningest coach against Virginia Tech is Cam Henderson. Cam Henderson actually has 2 victories against Virginia Tech. The losingest coach against Virginia Tech is Doc Holliday. He has lost 3 matchups in this series. He was the coach in 2018, lost that one. He was the coach in 2013, lost that one. And he was the coach in 2011, lost that one. Mark Snyder lost the game in 2009 and in 2005. And Bob Pruitt faced off against Virginia Tech in 2002, lost that one. Herb Royer lost in 1953 and 1952. I'm sorry, in 1953. 1952, it was Pete Peterson. Both losers in this series. So Cam Henderson winning in 1939 and in 1940. Those are also the only 2 victories that Marshall has over Virginia Tech. The legendary Cam Henderson with those victories. And at one point, this series was tied 2 games apiece. Virginia Tech has won 9 straight in this series. From 1951 to 2018, 9 straight. Can they make it 10? We're going to find out on Saturday here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Okay, that was a pretty good. Thanks for all the feedback on this one today. So the first person who got the trivia correct wins the ticket. So I will text you here in a minute for all of your details so we can get you those tickets. And we'll be back with you tomorrow. Then on Saturday, we're going to be at the West Lot. By chance, after our business office closes on Friday, by chance, if there are any tickets left over people did not pick up, I will have them and I'll give you an opportunity to win them on social. We'll do it Friday night on social, and then you'll just have to meet up with me on Saturday. So I think we can do that. Find me on social on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Paul Swann. That's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for tuning in. I want to thank my guest today for joining us, Bill Roth, the longtime voice of the Virginia Tech Hokies. I appreciate him. Looking forward to seeing him in Huntington on Saturday. And that's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for tuning in here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.